Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA stock. Let's go over what is happening to the stock on this beautiful, beautiful day on the NVIDIA stock, popping up a respectable amount of 3.5%. And yeah, as usual, I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. What could be a pretty big day, night, and even tomorrow trading day for NVIDIA, as we have CES and we have Jensen, I believe, speaking tonight, I think at 9:30 Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, let's see. Is this going to be a sell the news event, or do we continue this bullish pressure up? That's the main question. Let's try to figure that out. It's a big question mark, of course. Nobody knows, but let's see what the charts at least are, trying to tell us. So if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts, etc. on the charts, I do share my thoughts every day with my members when the market is open and while the market is open, sometimes even after market too, if I think of something. But I constantly share my thoughts and post and updates on the charts with my members in my YouTube membership. Link is below for just $3 a month. Again, mainly on Tesla stocks, sometimes other stocks. Today, Amazon and AMD I shared. Or for $5 a month, you get access to everything I just said, plus NVIDIA daily updates as well. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day with a respectable 3.5%, closing at almost $150 per share, which compared to the market, yeah, you can argue is a bit of an outperformance. I mean, the market itself, QQQ at least, pretty nice day as well, 1.15%, but NVIDIA with a nice 3.5%. So what does this mean moving forward? So I mentioned how I personally thought that NVIDIA most likely would stall somewhere around 145-ish, give or take 146. I said, I think I said the pop I would expect is 146 potentially. We obviously went past that, right? Not a lot past that, but we're still past that nonetheless. And I did expect to move back down to retest the 140 first before this pop up. Instead, we ended up getting it right away. Sometimes that's just how the game goes, right? You'll never get every single move to perfection. Trust me, that's impossible. You'll never do that. But what does this mean moving forward? So let's just get the obvious things out of the way. Let's just get the very obvious things out of the way on the daily chart, right? We're well above the Bollinger Bands, right? We're well above the Bollinger Bands. And even if I take the Bollinger Bands away and use the other ones, the Bands regression, we are in the second tier roughly of overbought territory on NVIDIA, which, history does show that there are times where NVIDIA can stay at this kind of level of being quote unquote overbought, for an extended period of time. But there's also times where it doesn't stay for too long and ultimately corrects. So it is still obviously a massive, massive question mark. But again, when it comes to these kind of situations, it pretty much comes down to risk versus reward. And, when I see a stock is well past its Bollinger Bands, to me, the risk versus reward, especially compared to back when it was, down either here or even here, is no longer as convincing, I guess, or it's no longer as high of a, or as good of, I should say, a risk to reward ratio, in my opinion, of course, right? Could be wrong. Everyone has their own methods, but to me personally, it's not as great because you're pretty much buying in euphoria territory. This is euphoria territory. This is essentially FOMO territory. Doesn't mean it can't go any higher. I'm not saying this has to be the top or anything like that, but when it comes to just simple risk versus reward management, buying when it's well outside the Bollinger Bands, usually doesn't work. Can it this time? Again, this is all trading. I'm talking about trading, not investing. Can it at times? Well, yeah, of course. At times it absolutely can. But the idea is the fact that more often than not, it doesn't. So that's kind of that out of the way, right? That's a very obvious thing out of the way. And I'll go over a couple more things as well very soon. But I want to jump into the more bullish side a little bit quickly here before everyone thinks I'm a massive bear because, I was obviously bullish down here and now I'm starting to turn a little bit bearish up here. The 4-hour chart, that's what I'm talking about, the 4-hour chart. So 4-hour chart shows the horizontal levels a little bit more clearly here, right? And the way I look at it is pretty simple, right? Now, again, like I said, just because we're overbought, it doesn't mean we have to, crash or correct or anything like that, right? For instance, obviously on Tesla stock, I bring out those Bollinger Bands. Tesla stock hugged the top side of the Bollinger Bands, especially on this move up right here, quite some time, right? Again, these are usually anomalies. They're not going to happen very often, but they do happen. Absolutely. This could be that moment for NVIDIA, kind of like this, right? Absolutely. So the one thing that can potentially convince me that, or at the very least show signs that it is that kind of moment and that we do actually stay oversold or overbought rather, for an extended period of time and potentially even move up while being overbought is simply holding above 149 to 150. We're obviously at 149.5. So, not the most convincing close, I'll be completely honest with you, but it's good enough for now. It is good enough for now. So we'll see if we get a gap down or not tomorrow. The bulls pretty much do not want a gap down tomorrow because there's a chance that we turn this kind of 149 to 150 level back into a resistance. So far, we're doing a decent job. And I say the word decent because, again, like I said, it's not convincing, but it's still something. Into support, as you can see back here, this area right here, massive area of resistance. It just kept getting rejected over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? And what do we do now? Well, we broke back above it on decent volume that's elevated, of course, and this last 4-hour candle has that nice little wick at the bottom that is signaling that, hey, you know what, there is a chance that this area that obviously was a resistance before back here has turned into support. That is an actual possibility here. So that, you know, as long as this maintains, and essentially as long as NVIDIA can continue ideally staying above, and even more ideally closing and maintaining closures above 149 at least to 150, yeah, you know, we could stay overbought, and at the very least we'd maybe just go sideways up here, and then that's how the bands catch up, right? There is a chance that does happen. However, on a closure down below that $1 range, 149 to 150, we most likely begin at the very least a small correction back down to about the 145, you know, 146, something like that, right? That'll be my first main target, with the next one being to pretty much about 140 to 141. Those are my two main targets at the downside if we do close below that overall level I just mentioned. Now, the flip side, of course, is the upside. If we can close above previous all-time highs, which again is pretty much $153 per share, that's obviously very bullish. And it pretty much, you know, it's pretty simple stuff. We most likely make our way even higher. In my opinion, I still think NVIDIA ultimately at some point this year, I don't know when, maybe it's January, maybe it's February, I don't know. Wouldn't be surprised if we ultimately make our way all the way back up here to about into the 160s, we'll say, right? That wouldn't shock me. Now, whether or not this is going to happen literally right here, right now, I doubt it. Never know. It could. I just doubt it, right? Again, you know, you don't usually stay overbought like this and continue moving upwards. Again, there's anomalies. Things can happen. Nothing is perfect. The market, you know, is its own little, you know, living, breathing organism, if you will, almost at times it feels like, right? It has a mind of its own sometimes. But just again, strictly speaking off of risk versus reward, you don't usually do that, right? That's not usually the case, especially considering a move back up to the 160s from here would still be another like easily 10%. Again, with the RSI being overbought as well. So, you know, we'll watch for that. But again, to me right now, the most important thing to really determine whether or not we can maintain this push up, really, again, 149 to 150, maintain above that, thumbs up. Break above 153 and close above 153, that's 2 thumbs up, right? But of course, breaking below 149 to 150 and closing below, that's 1 thumbs down, and below pretty much 145-ish is 2 thumbs down, and we make our way back down to 140 to 141. So let's see. Those are the main levels, right? Really simply put, it's really not that much more complicated than that. But I will obviously, you know, naturally give warning signs. I still don't think this is the place to chase. Unless, you know, and if you do chase, again, not financial advice, just thinking out loud, this is the place where you should have a tight stop loss, because, you know, it is a little bit elevated, I guess. It is in like FOMO territory, if you will. It's in very euphoric territory. Everyone's going to start talking about NVIDIA up here, and this is the perfect place for, you know, to bag some people, scare them off, and make our way back down. Now, another thing I want to mention is this, right? So I'm kind of I really like to trade to trend, but I also really like to trade the mean reversion type strategy, right? And what that essentially means is when price gets too far away to the upside or to the downside from the quote unquote mean reversion of the stock price in general, you want to watch out. So for instance, the mean reversion can apply with 3 different things that I use. And this is why I use them all in conjunction, because they kind of more or less mean the same thing. The Bollinger Bands, the market bias, and the EMA cloud. So let's start with the Bollinger Bands first. The white line in the center is the mean reversion. Whenever we stay too far away from it, especially too long, ultimately we come back down to the mean reversion line, like we did pretty much every single time. Here we were way too oversold, came back to it. Way too overbought, came back to it. Oversold, came back to it. Overbought, came back to it. Overbought, came back to it. Overbought, you know, again, right? Over and over and over and over and over. You know, you can just look at it a million times over. It happens every single time. Obviously, we are well above that now, right? We're above the Bollinger Bands, and we're well above the mean reversion line, which is currently sitting at 137. I don't think we'll go back there, but it'll play catch up, and I think we'll meet somewhere in the middle is what I'm expecting right now. But this is a bit slower, right? Market bias is obviously the same idea, obviously much slower. When we're too far below or above, same idea, right? Very similar idea that I just mentioned. But the other one I use that's important, that's a little bit faster, is the EMA cloud. The EMA cloud is essentially the as the 9 EMA and the 21 EMA, right? And this is much more aggressive. It follows the price much more closely, as you can see. But the thing with this one is because it's aggressive and because it tends to follow price much closer than usual, at least like the other ones I just showed you that are a little bit slower, of course, when price on the daily chart especially is this far away from even the EMA band, which you can see it's all the way down here and we're all the way up here. When price is this far away, I take extra caution again, because these bands are pretty much reversion bands. Like look how far away we were from it down here, right? We were so far away from it, and then we snapped back up into it, right? And we kind of keep snapping back into it. You keep kind of trading around it like this, right? Even when we had this massive squeeze and we were very, very overbought, we still kind of kept coming back down into it, right? Despite obviously it being quote unquote overbought if you use the Bollinger Bands for quite some time, hugging the green line for quite a bit, we still zigzagged back down into that emo band over and over and over before continuing back up. So the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that this also essentially acts as a mean reversion type indicator. And again, when we're this far away from the band, it doesn't usually last very long. So one of two things either happens. Either we come back into it, or I guess three things I should say. We either just pretty much come back into it pretty aggressively, we meet somewhere in the middle, which is what I think will happen, or we don't go up too much higher from here and we just go sideways. We go sideways and then the band ultimately eventually catches up, right? But usually one of those three things happens to some form of combination of the three, usually a combination of the second and the third thing. And that's kind of what I expect moving forward. And this is another reason why I'm personally taking a bit of caution here. I did sell, I had those shares that I said got called away. That same day on Friday, I actually bought a little bit after market, thankfully. Again, not a big position, but a position nonetheless, just for some upside exposure, because I didn't want a zero upside exposure. Obviously, thankfully I did obviously sell that position. But you know, the reason I'm not holding it is because again, it's too elevated. It's just, hey, that's just my trading strategy. It is what it is. That's how I'd like to do it. Other people have their own strategies. I think it's too far away, and I'd want to see the bands at the very least play catch up, especially the emo bands, before I feel a little bit more confident that there's a nice, you know, support below us essentially. Because right now we're kind of on a trampoline and we're at the very top of that trampoline, jumping up really high, and we're looking down and the trampoline is well down below us. And this is kind of what the emo band is. You know, it's like a trampoline. You know, we go well above it, bounce back into it, well above, bounce back, well above, bounce back, well above, bounce. You know, it's like a bouncing situation. You know, we're like bouncing on the trampoline, ping pong, you know, up down, and it's constantly bouncing us higher and higher and higher. And right now we pretty much want to wait, in my opinion, for that next move back down into the trampoline for that next potential bounce up even higher, or at the very least equal highs. Anyways, I'm rambling a little bit here. I'm sure you get the idea and I'm sure you get the drift. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with TES. Again, as long as we continue holding 149, yeah, hey, as far as I'm aware, we could go even higher, of course, but just not a bet I'm personally willing to make. And if I do, it's very small. In terms of options flow, NVIDIA, actually, let's take a quick look here first on Cheddar Flow, which, by the way, phenomenal option service platform. I have a link to it down below. This is the part I'm confused about. I'm not really sure what to make of this. So Cheddar Flow shows an absolutely just astronomical, overwhelming amount of bullish flow over bearish flow throughout the day. 24 million bearish flow or put flow, and almost 300 million call flow, right? And I'm sure if we scroll down, it probably makes sense. The thing that's confusing to me, and this is why I personally don't follow options flow very much, and I don't really rely on it personally, unless it's really something out of the ordinary, is because, so this is showing this, but if I go to black box, it actually shows the exact opposite. I'll even refresh it just in case, but it shows the exact opposite of what that's showing. If I go to options flow, bearish flow, you can see this one's actually showing almost 200 million bearish confirmed flow on NVIDIA. So I'm not really sure what to make of that. I'll be completely honest with you. I figured I'd share it regardless. You know, maybe someone better than me, you know, with options flow. I will admit I'm not the most knowledgeable person when it comes to reading options flow. It's just not something I do often, but it is what it is. So if anyone knows, hey, maybe they can comment below and they'll have a, you know, better input than I do on this overall. But yeah, in terms of technical analysis and, you know, the overall technical readings, that's all I got for you. So let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. And as usual, I will see you for the next one. Peace.